Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Justin Godsey. This is the Real Sports Talk and Nation Sports Vlog presents the 30 Clubs, 30 Previews MLB special. And today we are on to an interesting team in the Texas Rangers, a team that last year went 93-69, but fell to the Oakland Athletics on the final day of the season, which pushed them out of winning another AL West crown, which meant that they had to play a one-game playoff to get to the playoffs against the Baltimore Orioles, which they lost. That turned out to be the final game in Texas for Josh Hamilton, who left to sign a 5-year, $125 million deal with division rival the Los Angeles Angels. And then also they traded Michael Young to the Phillies, and Mike Napoli is now headed off to Boston to play first base. So Justin, it was a crazy offseason in terms of losses. Who did they bring in to kind of negate some of those losses, or at least try to do so?
You know, when you look at who they brought in, it's not really going to compare to who they lost. They lost more than what they gained. They got A.J. Pierzynski over from the Chicago White Sox, which I thought that Pierzynski was going to stay there in Chicago, but then again they had Taylor Flowers who's coming up through their farm system and has really outplayed A.J. Pierzynski. So he's going to be coming over to the Texas Rangers, and he's going to has his backup in Giovanni Soto. You know, that's not that bad of a 1-2 push, kind of like a platoon. You know, when you go to their minor league type of deals like non-roster invitees, they got Derek Lowe, who's going to be coming over from the New York Yankees. They had Kyle McClellan, who's coming over from the St. Louis Cardinals. And remember, Nick Tepesch, who's going to be contending for number 5, Randy Wells. They got Eli Whiteside. They got Joakim Soria, who was out most of last year due to an injury. He's coming over to them to serve as their setup man. They just got Brad Mills today. You know, these moves right now, they're not really going to compare to a lot of the power that they had before last year, as they're not going to be there anymore. You know, Josh Hamilton is gone, Mike Napoli is gone, and these moves will just not live up to the expectations for this upcoming season. They also got Lance Berkman, by the way.
Yeah, adding Berkman in is a move where you get a veteran player. You add in A.J. Pierzynski. He's a winner. He's a hard, gritty player, but he's also a 35-year-old catcher, so you kind of have some questions there. I mean, again, Justin's exactly right. You bring in some bigger names, some good guys, but they're up there in age, and you're not sure really what they're going to bring, and they're certainly not going to bring the production that you lost. We know that Michael Young was probably done there anyway in terms of having a good role, so that trade was fine, and they bring in the leadership of A.J. Pierzynski and Lance Berkman to replace them. Mike Napoli got overpaid, but at the same time, they don't have an option on this team that was better than the production that Mike Napoli gave them, and they certainly, as good as Craig Gentry played last year, did not have an option as good as Josh Hamilton, and they certainly could not afford to have him leave this team and go to another team in the division. So that's what's kind of concerning heading into this season for the Texas Rangers. We will begin going position by position at DH with Lance Berkman, a guy who only was able to play 32 games last season, did contemplate retirement, had some interest from the Astros, a team where he spent pretty much his entire career with, was not able to get a deal done there. But the Rangers, who pretty much lost half their offense from last year, they decided to take a flyer on him. The bottom line, though, is that I don't know how much Lance Berkman has left. 2 years ago, he hit .301 with 31 home runs, 94 RBIs. But what people forget is that was hitting behind Albert Pujols in a lineup that also featured Matt Holliday. It was just a tremendous overall lineup. Prior to that, in a season split with the Astros and the Yankees, he looked like he was done in 2010. So I'm not exactly sure what to expect. I don't know if he can stay healthy, and I think playing him at DH is the best role for him right now at this point in his career, because it reduces any risk that he would get injured, whether it was playing in right field or over at first base.
Absolutely. We don't know exactly what we're supposed to expect out of Lance Berkman. Yes, he did consider retirement, and you know what? His fielding days are over. He's getting really up there at age, and you know what? He's going through a time of his career where a lot of these veteran type of guys are going through, they'll go bouncing around from team to team, and we saw that with the Cardinals. He was with the Yankees for a period of time, and now he's coming to the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros rival. So we'll just have to wait and see how it will play out for Berkman, because remember, the Texas Rangers open up at the Houston Astros. That's Lance Berkman's old stomping ground, so I cannot wait to actually see that. That's going to actually be the opening day game, the first game for the MLB season.
Yeah, it's a Sunday night baseball game on ESPN next weekend. Justin, I'm counting the seconds until that game, until the MLB season gets going. And one guy on this team eager to make an impact in that game would be new catcher A.J. Pierzynski, who spent a lot of his career with the Chicago White Sox. Prior to the White Sox, he had played with the Twins and the Giants first season, but he had been with the White Sox since 2005, won a world title there in his second season in 2006, and last year probably had his best overall offensive season, hitting .278 with a career-high 27 home runs and 77 RBIs. The RBIs, I think, are a lot more likely to be in the area of about 60 to 65 this year. And the home runs, he's never even hit 20 prior to last season in his career. So to expect him to come over and hit 27 is not very realistic. I think more about 15 to 18 home runs is the area you look for. You like the leadership and the winning attitude that he brings to this team, though.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been in the World Series before with the Chicago White Sox, and I think it was actually in 2005 or 2006 was when they won it.
It was 2005.
So he's bringing over.
Right?
No, go ahead.
It was 2005. I screwed that up.
Yeah, it was in 2005. That was his first year with the team because, like Tim mentioned, he played with Minnesota. He played 1 year in San Francisco, where it was actually all pretty decent. But last year was just a huge year for A.J. Pierzynski. His first time in his career reaching up to 27 home runs, even 20 home runs in his career, having 77 RBIs. It was just high totals throughout his entire career. Bringing that over to the Texas Rangers, to a team, it is kind of getting up in age in certain areas. I think catcher is one of those positions, and A.J. Pierzynski, he still has it. I understand why the Texas Rangers wanted to go out there and get it. They wanted to bring in a guy who has veteran leadership, and it's a good move. They do have Conrad Schmidt, who's going to be a third option for the team, and they also have Giovanni Soto behind him. So I kind of like the catcher's position overall for the Texas Rangers.
Now, Giovanni Soto is going to be the backup catcher, but it's actually very possible that he could be the starter on opening day because Yu Darvish is likely going to be getting the ball for the Rangers on opening day, and there's a lot of speculation that Yu Darvish may be caught personally by Giovanni Soto. Soto split last season between the Cubs and the Rangers, and in 99 total games, he hit 198 with 11 home runs and 39 RBIs. So it was an extremely disappointing season from an average perspective. He's never really been a guy who's going to hit you for a great average. I think as a backup catcher, you like the fact that you could throw him in there on certain days, get a decent bat out of him, get some pop, get some RBIs, but you don't go in there expecting that he would hit for a great average, or else he would be a starter somewhere. So that's what you're going to get out of Giovanni Soto. Mitch Moreland will start over at first base. Moreland last year in 114 games hit .275 with 15 home runs, 50 RBIs. I'm really looking for Mitch Moreland this year to play a full season, which he's never really done. Played 134 games in 2011. That's the closest he's been. And I want to see what he can actually do numbers-wise over the course of a whole year. I think he can hit about .280 with 20 home runs, 75 RBIs, somewhere in that area. That's the type of production I'm looking for Mitch Moreland. And with all the losses this team has taken, they need him to step up and really develop into a better player this year, I think.
I think Mitch Moreland could be a guy who's just waiting for a breakout year. I think in 2013 he can be that guy. This guy has a bat that can reach up to about 20 home runs a year. This guy has great power, and he does have the correct tools to do so. So when you go over to one certain point of it in his batting, you got to look at the average. 275 in 2012. 259 in 2011. It's just kind of up and down with him a little bit. Well, we just hope that, Mitch Moreland can get up to like 280, maybe 285 in that criteria. And I think that guy who can hit for power, he has a solid power bat. This guy does have the mechanics, like I said, to hit up to the 20 home run range. If he does that, I think 2013 could be his breakout year.
Now, a guy that over at second base, they need the production to continue out of him is Ian Kinsler. There's a lot of speculation that they would potentially try to move him over to first base to accommodate Jurickson Profar, their top prospect, and start him over at second. Instead, Profar is likely to begin the season over at their AAA level, and he will begin the season at AAA. Elvis Andrus, who only will be with the Rangers probably a couple more years because he's going to get a big contract, and it's pretty much a guarantee it won't be from the Rangers. Ian Kinsler will remain at second. Kinsler last year hit 250, stole 21 bases, 19 home runs, and 60 RBI or 72 RBIs. I would like to see more of the production of the 31, 32 home runs that we've seen him have in the past. And again, with Josh Hamilton out of this lineup, with guys that you're relying on like Nelson Cruz constantly having injuries and not being able to be out in the field, Ian Kinsler is going to be expected to play a bigger role in this offense this year. And if he doesn't do it, then the Rangers are going to be in trouble.
Now you're seeing you're seeing a kind of a drought in Ian Kinsler right now. You know, in the offseason, he was really pissed off at the organization about potentially moving him over to first base because you gotta look on the standpoint of what your organization wants to do. You want to bring Jurickson Profar now with Ian Kinsler not wanting to go anywhere. He wants to stay at second base. Elvis Andrus over at shortstop. They didn't want to trade him because his contract is a little bit big, and they really want to hold on to him for a couple more seasons until his contract runs out. And he also got Moreland over at first, and Ian Kinsler did not want to move at all. So what better route they had to do is they had to send Profar down to the farm system. But with Ian Kinsler, you're seeing somewhat of a downfall. In 2011, this guy just went off. His average wasn't there, but this guy produced power-wise. 32 home runs, 77 RBIs, and down 255. Last year, in 2012, 19 home runs, 72 RBIs, and batted at 256. You'd hope that he gets his average up back to the time where around he was, first coming into the system around 2006 where he batted 286. We just hope that he can get back to the early forms of the old Ian Kinsler. And if this team's really going to be really successful, you really got to get the full production out of Ian Kinsler.
Now, and I understand your point that you made about Ian Kinsler should probably have moved to first base to accommodate the team. But the one thing that I've noticed with the Rangers, they're an extremely smart organization led by Nolan Ryan and GM John Daniels. But the thing that they're doing wrong is they're treating their players almost like they're just a number. It's just a guy that just fits into the system, and then once he moves on, you just bring up the next guy from the farm system. And in a way, it's smart because you don't get into bad contracts. But what they've done is they let C.J. Wilson go, which was a smart move, but it pissed some of the players off. They moved Michael Young to third base, and he was willing to do that to accommodate when Elvis Andrus came up. And then they signed Adrian Beltre the following offseason, and they expect Michael Young to move to DH. This is a guy who, yes, it might have been for the best of the team, but they're kind of slapping him in the face, and he had been the longest tenured Ranger, a guy who had been in this organization for quite a long time, and really may be the best Texas Ranger of all time. So they did that to him. They end up moving on from him this offseason, and then it almost seemed like they're trying to start the same process with Ian Kinsler this offseason, and I think that they're being too impersonal with their players, and that's not a recipe that's going to get a lot of players to sign there. They need to find a line between being smart and also having good relationships with their players, because if they don't do that, then they're going to not have a lot of people that want to sign in Texas or want to stay in Texas long term. So from that, Elvis Andrus is his starting shortstop. In 158 games last year, Andrus hit 286, stole 21 bags, 3 home runs, 62 RBIs. He's a contact hitter. He's going to get on base. I want to see him get back over 30 stolen bases, which he did from 2009 to 2011, because his role on this team is to get on base and set the table for the guys like Nelson Cruz, Lance Berkman. They're going to be hitting in the middle of this line to hit him in and bring him around. When he's only stealing 21 bases, he's not really achieving his role to the best of his ability.
Yeah, Elvis Andrus is a top 5, no doubt about it, shortstop in Major League Baseball. Last year we saw a high in average last year, about a 286, and you know what? I think Elvis Andrus can improve above that. I think this guy has potential to hit back up in the 300 range. Back in 2000, and I think when he was a prospect, actually, he hit phenomenally down the farm system. He batted in 2005 in his first year in the minors, batted 293. His bat is very promising, so you can really rely on Elvis Andrus. I honestly do not think he's going to be in the Texas Rangers long term. I do think that he's going to end up being somewhere else, but you know what? You do have a predecessor, and that is Jurickson Profar, who's just been phenomenal in the farm system for the Texas Rangers. And you know what? It's only a matter of time until we see him up in the Major League level this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was up late last season, and ultimately with Ian Kinsler unwilling to move. They do not have a spot for him, but I think at some point this season they're going to end up finding a spot for him because I think they realize the potential that he does have for this team. Whether it's, honestly don't know where it is, but I think that at some point we could see Ian Kinsler move this season, whether it's through a trade or whether it's moving him to first base or the outfield. Whatever the case is, maybe they even consider moving Elvis Andrus, but I think at some point this year, Jurickson Profar is going to be up with the Texas Rangers because he can play a big role for this team, and they need his bat and just his overall ability in that lineup. A top prospect in the MLB. A guy who is going to be in this lineup and provide a lot is Adrian Beltre over at third base, who hit .321 last year with 36 home runs, 102 RBIs. I think, though, with Josh Hamilton out of this lineup, as good as he's been since coming to Texas, I would expect a bit of a drop-off from Beltre. I think he hits about 30 home runs this year, bats about .290, because taking Josh Hamilton out of this lineup, I think you're going to see Adrian Beltre not see quite as many pitches. Not to mention, you also lose Mike Napoli, and Michael Young has been a guy who's been a good hitter there, even though it wasn't last year, it was 2 years ago. So I think taking them out of this lineup puts more pressure on Beltre, and I'm not sure he's going to see quite as many pitches as he has in the past.
Oh, I agree. I think with the loss, like you said, with Napoli, of Hamilton, of Michael Young, it just leaves, this Texas Rangers team with, 3 or 4, power bats now, because when you look at the situation now, Beltre has been phenomenal. He's always been a power hitter throughout his whole MLB career. Last year we saw, the best of it, 36 home runs, 102 RBIs. Every year this guy always, connects. This guy has a badass home run swing where he just hits the ball, lands on one, and just lets it sail out of the stadium. This guy is going to have a lot of pressure on him, so he really needs to, continue what he did last year. He has to start off in 2013 on a high note and let that fly all the way through the end. To the end of the season. Hopefully, if this Texas Rangers team can make the playoffs, and let's just hope that they can actually get that far and just pile up some wins. You need Adrian Beltre to be, consistent all year, and keep on hitting up that 321 average. He hit 321 once before in 2010 with the Boston Red Sox. Let's just hope that he can keep on hitting for the entire year.
Now, the guy who's going to end up being their main utility man in the infield because Profar is not up is Jeff Baker. Jeff Baker can play second and third. Not 100% sure what his ability would be at short, but I don't think you're going to have too many days where you're going to need him to start at any of those positions because you have 3 pretty solid starters. Baker last year spent time with both the Detroit Tigers and the Atlanta Braves, hitting a combined .239, but that was only in 83 games, so there's not a ton to go off of. He has the ability to play numerous positions, so that's what's going to make him their main utility guy, but I think in the end, Profar would be more valuable on this MLB roster. Now, David Murphy is going to be the starter in left field. Murphy last year got his first chance to really be an everyday starter, and he made the best out of it, hitting .304 with 15 home runs, 61 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, and the thing that I like about him is that there are a lot of outfielders that you can get that'll hit 15 to 20 home runs and 61 RBIs, but he provides a pretty good glove, and there's not a lot of outfielders that you find that are going to hit the 15 to 20 home runs and hit 300, so that's what I liked out of David Murphy last year, or Daniel Murphy, I should say, David Murphy. I'm not 100% sure if you're going to get that same production out of him, but I enjoyed watching it last year, to say the least.
I have to agree with you, my friend. David Murphy last season, 15 home runs, 61 RBIs, batted .304. Well, you've got to keep on having that. These 300s, averages are just phenomenal. You just hope that they can really, transition that to the 2013, the next season. And David Murphy, this guy has always been like a killer in the playoffs. When it comes up to him when it comes to big clutch situations, that you cannot go wrong with David Murphy to come up to the bat. You know what? This guy will also have a huge role for the Texas Rangers this year, so you guys really want to watch out on any team in Major League Baseball. Watch out for David Murphy in 2013.
Now, Leonys Martin is a Cuban import, one of the Rangers' better young players in their minor league system. Last year at AAA in only 55 games, hit .359, 12 home runs, 42 RBIs, stole 10 bases, tore through AAA. At the MLB level, where he's going to be a backup this year, he played a little bit at the end of last season, hitting .174, but that was only in 46 at-bats, so that really does not tell you much. He stole 3 bags, so I think off the bench his speed is going to be valuable, and if David Murphy wasn't able to duplicate the season he had last year, then you have another option. You also have a guy who can play in center. If Craig Gentry, who's a starter in center, hit .304 last year with 1 home run and 26 RBIs, stole 13 bags. If he can't duplicate that average, and his value goes way down because he doesn't have a ton of pop, so then you have another option in Leonys Martin as a backup or as a starter in center field or a platoon guy, whatever the case would be.
I really see a platoon going here. You know, Craig Gentry, he did serve as Josh Hamilton's backup for a couple of years now. And you know what, now they're going to really take an opportunity at Craig Gentry to see how well he plays out. Even though he did play 121 games last year, you know, he had a couple starts here and there on the Josh Hamilton when he was injured. And, you know, Craig Gentry filled in the role and played phenomenal, batted .304 last year. And then you got Leonys Martin, who's really been down in their farm system with AAA Round Rock Express. This guy really exploded in 55 games, you know, and in the 55 games, this guy really played phenomenal. 12 home runs, 42 RBIs, and batted .359. You know, it's just really it really scares me with these young minor league type of hitters making the jump from a minor league farm system over to the major league level. It's just the biggest issue I have right now is, are they going to be consistent enough to, you know, play an entire season of baseball, and are they going to have the amount of power that the amount of impact that they did down in the farm system?
Yeah, that is certainly something that you wonder about with all the prospects, and a guy that you you didn't want to come into the season wondering about, because he should have been one of the more sure things, is Nelson Cruz. Because not only do you always have an injury risk with Nelson Cruz, even though he was able to play 159 games, that was the first time in his career he played over 130, so that shows you the amount of injury problems he has had throughout his career. But he also then this offseason was linked with a steroid clinic in Miami, the Biogenesis Lab, I believe it's called, and it's really up in the air what could end up happening. There's rumors that a potential suspension could come at any time. That's going to be hanging over the Rangers' head because the MLB is really investigating this. They're pushing hard to try and figure more information out. I'm not sure if they're going to ever be able to figure anything out, because it appears that pretty much all the documents were destroyed, but Nelson Cruz's name was on a list. They're going to be testing him hard, and if there was a suspension that comes down at any point this season, that would be a killer to a Rangers team that cannot afford to lose him.
In the beginning parts of the season, yes, Tim, if Nelson Cruz is really going to be suspended, I know his list was named on one of the documents that they have, and MLB, I think, is actually trying to sue them. They're trying to get them, you know, a date or a court date, or trying to sue this company for, you know, supplying these players, you know, with the performance-enhancing substances. You know, MLB is really, you know, on their asses about this entire thing. And, you know, Nelson Cruz's name happens to be on it. His boomstick is just freaking horrendous. 24 home runs, 90 RBIs, batted .260 last year in 159 games. You know, he's a sole contender. He's the sole remaining guy in this outfield who's really productive. Not taking anything away from David Murphy, but you know, I think Nelson Cruz, who came over here from the Milwaukee Brewers, really made an impact when he came up through actually mainly their farm system, because this guy really has just played phenomenal baseball, which made him have a huge impact not only to the organization, to the fans. He's a huge fan favorite, and you know what, I'm going to go out and say this: if Nelson Cruz really does get suspended and he actually did, you know, take steroids, you know, I'm going to lose a lot of respect for the guy. But overall, if he is clean and everything, this is clean baseball. You know, he plays phenomenal baseball, and you know, he's a keeper for Texas Rangers. He's going to be in their long future.
I don't know what to say. We're going to have to wait and see on Nelson Cruz. He has one of the best power swings. He's been one of the most clutch players in the playoffs, so we'll see what ends up happening with them. We're also on pretty much the same thing with this starting rotation, because Yu Darvish is likely to get the ball on opening day. Darvish last year in his first season, after coming over being highly touted from Japan, went 16-9 with a .390 ERA. I thought he was going to be a stud. He really wasn't that. Justin thought he was going to be a complete bust. He really wasn't that. He was pretty much in between what we thought, but he fell off late in the season, wasn't very consistent. Justin, this year I'm looking for Yu Darvish to post about a .330 ERA and pitch more like an ace or a number 2 type guy than he did last year.
You know what, I'm not really the biggest fan of Yu Darvish. I mean, I can go out and say that, but you know, on reporters, you know, Yu Darvish, he wasn't a bust last year. You know, it's his first year, and he actually felt pretty at home coming over from, you know, I think actually it was a Japan ball, coming over to Major League Baseball. You know, he really left off from what he was in Japan. He played fairly well. He got an All-Star in his first year. You know, big ups to him. But you know what? we just gotta look long term with him. Is he going to be consistent as he was in 2012? He has a 16-9 record. I do expect his ERA around where Tim said. I have it about 3.40, 3.35. Somewhere in that alley. But you know what? Is he an ace? I really wouldn't think so. I think that Matt Harrison should be more deserving of the opening day spot rather than Yu Darvish.
Yeah, and I think he is too. Matt Harrison got a big 5-year extension in the offseason. Went 18-11 last year with the 3.29 ERA, coming off the 2011 season where he's 14-9 with the 3.39 ERA. So he has become a very consistent pitcher. Again, he's not someone that he's a very good number 2. He's a mediocre number 1 in my mind, because the number 1 guy, you want to try and have someone that has an ERA below 2. You're talking about Justin Verlander. I mean, the normal guys that we say like CC Sabathia and Roy Halladay weren't there last year, but what they normally are, those type of guys that pitch a ton of innings. They're workhorses. They'll get you a lot of complete games. Harrison doesn't quite fit that role, but I do like the 1-2 punch of both those guys. And then Derek Holland's at the number 3 spot, Justin. Holland really struggled last year after 2011, where he was 16-5, 3.95 ERA. That was pretty respectable. Not great with the 3.95 ERA, but he had 4 complete games. Last year, regressed to a 12-7 record with a 4.67 ERA in 29 total games. Last year was a big disappointment for Derek Holland.
Yeah, I was overall really disappointed. Remember, Derek Holland is a former bullpen type of guy, kind of like how Steve J. Wilson was. Steve J. Wilson began his career with the Texas Rangers as a bullpen guy. And then they moved him over to the starting rotation where the depth just really killed him a little bit. And we all know how it worked out. It was actually pretty decent until now he's over with the Los Angeles Angels. Because you know what? It's like all these Rangers free agents that they have, and they always go to the Angels first as a new home, and it's just really surprising. But when it comes back to Derek Holland, I still think he's still getting really adjusted to the starting rotation. He has had numerous starts, going back to last year, and then he pitched in the World Baseball Classic. He didn't really shine on me. He didn't really shine on a lot of us during the World Baseball Classic. He got all but 1 start. And you know what? He just really needs to work on his pitching mechanics and stuff. So he just play basic baseball and just get back into the form that where he was in the bullpen during the 2010 and 2011 season, where he was 16-5. We just hope that he can bring that ERA down a whole lot.
Yeah, he needs to bring that ERA down to number 3, because that's going to determine a lot about this rotation. I think if the Rangers are seriously going to compete this year, they're going to need to add another starter in this rotation. Alexi Ogando, who 2 years ago had a tremendous start and then faded, ended up in the bullpen at the end of the year in the playoffs, went 13-8 with a 3.51 ERA in 2011, and then last year only made 1 total start, was pretty solid out of the bullpen with a 2-0 record, 3.27 ERA in 57 appearances. I think his best role is suited for him to be in the bullpen, but because of necessity, they're going to stretch his arm back out and put him in the rotation. I think it might work for the beginning of the year, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to last the entire season, Justin.
You know what? This move is really coming off of what was announced actually today with Neftali Feliz. He's going to be hitting the 60-day disabled list, and we all know what happened with Neftali Feliz last year in his first time in the. I think he was actually in the starting rotation, wasn't he, Tim?
Yeah, he was in the rotation at the beginning.
He really didn't raise a lot of eyebrows, but in 2011, in 64 games for the Texas Rangers, was 2-3, and you know what? I actually think that the Texas Rangers are still making those really concerns like. Is Neftali Feliz going to get dead arm? Is he going to have an issue with the mechanics going long term in innings? And then now that he has Tommy John surgery, we just seen the full effects on what pitching does to Major League athletes, and Neftali Feliz is just one of those guys. So he's going to be hitting the 60-day DL, and you know what? That really puts a dent on the pitching rotation. And now they're going to be asking Alexi Ogando, who is a really phenomenal Dominican-born. A Dominican player coming over from the Dominican Republic to come over here to the Texas Rangers, and in his first full season, he was just phenomenal. 13-8, and with a 3.51 ERA. He was in the bullpen for a little bit. And you know what? Coming over to the starting rotation, this guy still has it. I think Alexi Ogando should be, at least the number 4. I think Derek Holland should be in the bullpen. I think he should be the likely man out. And then also got to make bold cases for Derek Lowe, who they acquired in the offseason. Nate Robertson was another guy they brought in, but he's more than likely. His career is pretty much going to a dump right now. I mean, no disrespect, but you know what? It's the road that Nate Robinson went on. He's on like his 5th team already. And, number 5 is really up in the air right now, and I think Nick Tepesh is going to be that guy for number 5. As for Alexi Ogando, at number 4, it seems likely that he should be in number 3. Derek Collins should be in the bullpen, and there should be really big competitions for number 4.
Yeah, you have the options at number 5. Some of the guys you mentioned, you have Michael Kirkman. Colby Lewis will be back at some point this year. It sounds like he's going to miss at least the first month of the year. So Colby Lewis eventually will rejoin this rotation, but he's going to miss that first month without pitching, and then likely it's going to take even a little bit more time for him to make some rehab appearances and whatnot. So he's going to end up having to miss some time. So Michael Kirkman or Nick Tepesh, whoever gets thrown into the rotation, is going to have to hold it down for this Rangers team while they look to get back on their feet and get some people back in this rotation after the first month. So in the bullpen, the two guys we're going to profile are Joakim Soria and Joe Nathan. And for the record, I still think long-term Natali Feliz is the best option to be this team's closer. Not taking anything away from Joe Nathan, who came back and had a pretty successful season with the Rangers last year. But Natali Feliz, to me, is a guy that I think a lot of times we look too far into things with young pitchers. David Price came up and was a very good closer and transitioned obviously extremely well into the rotation. But you're looking at guys now like Aroldis Chapman and Natali Feliz that are tremendous closers, and they try and put them in the rotation. And to me, it's hard to find a very good young consistent closer. And when you find it, you just probably shouldn't mess with it. You should let it alone, let him stay in the closer spot. So I think Natali Feliz long term will be this team's closer. But Joakim Soria is a guy who's had a ton of injuries that have really killed his career, but prior to all those injuries was an all-star level closer from 2007 to 2010. Was saving 40 games a year in some of those years, so it was extremely productive. And then Joe Nathan is a guy who came back from injuries with the Twins last year, ended up having a very good first season with the Texas Rangers. He is in a contract year this year, so we'll see, but he saved 37 out of 40 games last year.
Yeah, I like this bullpen a little bit, even though they do have, injury problems with Joakim Soria, missed all of 2012 with an injury. The Royals just had to get him off the roster. And we know the big success with the Royals bullpen without Joakim Soria there in 2012. He's now coming over to the Texas Rangers as, is his opening day stats going to be healthy? That's still up in the air because, this team has just had, injuries that's been killing them. And Joakim Soria, for the time being, right now, he's not going to be used as the setup man. He's going to be more of those late inning relievers. Actually, got Lynn Bloom, who's coming out through the farm system. Joe Nathan, the closer, Joe Nathan, I was really, it goes back to when we previewed the Nationals, where I talked about the Nards band, where when the Twins just really killed their team, just releasing and just trading away all their top players. And it's one of those teams kind of like the Miami Marlins, where they just trade so many great talented players, and they don't really get enough in return. And that's pretty much what the Twins got. They released Matt Katz, they released Joe Nathan, they traded away Ben Revere, and overall for Joe Nathan coming over here to the Texas Rangers, yes, he is going to be in the contract here. Natali Feliz being a long-term closer, Tim, I do not agree with that. I think Natali Feliz, he does have the arm strength to go long in innings, but you know what, that Tommy John surgery is just going to be the course of concern this year. I don't expect Natali Feliz to make a big impact once he comes back after the All-Star break, is when he's expected to return to the team. But overall, I like this bullpen. You got the veteran in Joe Nathan. You got some depth in with Joakim Soria when he's coming back and he's 100% healthy. You got some young guys. You got Robbie Ross, Kirkman, Lynn Bloom, Derek Lowe, who's actually been playing fairly well in spring training. I think this bullpen is set to go for 2013.
Yeah, it's going to be a good bullpen, and at this point you might as well put Natali Feliz in the rotation because that's where you need the most help anyway. So Texas Rangers 2013, Justin, I think about 85, 86 wins. There's a lot of questions, and I think they end up in third place in this division, out of the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons.
It's really up in the air, but for what I've written down, I have the Texas Rangers. I have them in third. I have to agree with you, Tim. I have them in third as well. I think the Oakland Athletics, they do have a lot of young talent. You got Yoenis Cespedes, Derek Norris. They have some great depth. You got Coco Crisp. The pitching rotation is not there, but the hitting-wise is phenomenal. The A's, I would rather take the A's starting rotation over the Texas Rangers at this point because, there's not a lot of questions in at Oakland. They have a lot of young guys who pitch phenomenal. The Angels are just, oh man, they took Josh Hamilton. They got Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, Mark Trumbo. Texas Rangers team does not have the team that they had last year to really compete against the Los Angeles Angels. But you know what? I think Oakland can really squeeze out a final, week of the season to really squeeze out, a couple of big wins. I think Texas Rangers is really going to fall off in the last couple of seasons of the last couple of weeks in the season. And I have Oakland taking second and the Angels in first.
Yeah, it should be interesting. This is a division that now adds the Astros in, and don't forget the Mariners are a much improved team as well. We'll see what the Rangers do in 2013. For now, though, I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Justin Godsey. 30 Clubs, 30 Previews, MLB Special. We'll see you next time.